The year was 2147, and Earth was running out of time. The resources that had once seemed endless were now dwindling at an alarming rate. Humanity had turned its gaze to the stars, hoping to find a new home among the countless planets scattered across the galaxy. But space was vast, and not every world was kind to life. Some planets were barren wastelands, others boiling infernos, and a rare few were labeled as Class 0, a designation reserved for worlds so hostile they defied imagination. Eryx 9 was one such planet. It orbited a dim red star on the far edge of explored space. From orbit, it looked like a swirling mass of gray clouds and jagged terrain. Acidic rain fell constantly, carving deep scars into the rocky surface. Toxic gases filled the atmosphere, making it impossible for humans to breathe without advanced protective gear. And yet, despite all this, Eryx 9 held promise. Beneath its harsh exterior lay minerals and compounds that could revolutionize energy production back on Earth. At least that's what the scientists said. A team of 4 had been selected for the mission. They weren't soldiers or celebrities. They were ordinary people plucked from obscurity because of their skills. Ethan Cole was an engineer with a knack for fixing things under pressure. His hands were calloused from years of tinkering with machinery, and his mind worked quickly when problems arose. Claire Dawson, the biologist, had spent most of her career studying extremophiles, organisms that thrived in conditions lethal to most forms of life. Her fascination with alien ecosystems made her the perfect candidate for analyzing Eryx 9's environment. Ryan Mitchell, the pilot, had a reputation for calmness under fire. He didn't say much, but his steady demeanor inspired confidence in those around him. Finally, there was Olivia Grant, the leader of the group. She had risen through the ranks of the Interstellar Colonization Initiative, ICI, thanks to her sharp instincts and unyielding determination. Their ship, the Odyssey, descended toward Eryx 9 with a low hum. Outside the windows, the stormy atmosphere churned violently, lightning flashing like veins of electricity. The crew sat strapped into their seats, staring silently at the chaos beyond the glass. No one spoke. Each person was lost in their own thoughts, wondering if they'd made the right choice to come here. When the ship finally touched down, the ground shook beneath its weight. The landing site was a flat expanse of cracked rock surrounded by towering cliffs. The air outside shimmered faintly, distorted by heat and chemicals. Ethan glanced at the readouts on his console. "Temperature is stable within the suits," he muttered. "But we'll need to keep moving. This place doesn't look like it's going to play nice." Claire nodded, already checking the seals on her helmet. Her suit was bulky, designed to protect against the planet's extreme conditions, but she moved with practiced ease. "Let's focus on gathering samples first," she said. "If we can figure out how anything survives here, we might be able to adapt our technology accordingly." Ryan double-checked the coordinates on his tablet. "We've got about 6 hours before the next major storm hits," he warned. "After that, visibility will drop to 0, and the winds will pick up. We don't want to be caught out there." Olivia gave the order to disembark. One by one, the team stepped onto the surface of Eryx 9. The ground crunched beneath their boots, brittle and sharp. The sky above was a sickly shade of orange, streaked with dark clouds that writhed like living things. The acidic rain began to fall almost immediately, pattering against their helmets with a soft hiss. It wasn't enough to penetrate their suits, but the sound was unnerving. They moved cautiously, scanning the area for anything unusual. At first glance, Eryx 9 appeared completely barren. There were no signs of plant life, no animals scurrying across the rocks, just an endless expanse of desolation. But as they ventured farther from the ship, something caught Claire's eye. A cluster of strange crystalline structures jutting out of the ground. They gleamed dully in the dim light, their surfaces uneven and rough. "What are those?" Ethan asked, crouching down to examine one of the formations. He ran his gloved hand over its surface, feeling the texture. "They don't look natural." Claire leaned closer, her breath fogging the inside of her visor. "I'm not sure," she admitted. "But they're definitely not geological. Look at the way they're arranged, almost like they're part of a pattern." Olivia frowned. Could they be remnants of an ancient civilization? It's possible, Claire replied. Or maybe some kind of mineral-based organism. I've never seen anything like it. Before anyone could respond, the ground trembled slightly. A low rumble echoed in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Ryan spun around, scanning the horizon. Something's coming, he said sharply. We should head back to the ship. But Claire hesitated. She couldn't tear her eyes away from the crystals. There was something mesmerizing about them, something that tugged at the edges of her consciousness. She reached out instinctively, brushing her fingers against one of the larger formations. For a brief moment, everything went still. The wind stopped, the rain paused, and even the distant thunder faded into silence. Then, without warning, the ground erupted. A massive shape burst forth from the earth, sending shards of rock flying in every direction. The creature towered above them, its body a grotesque fusion of flesh and metal. Its limbs were long and spindly, ending in razor-sharp claws. Its head was elongated with glowing eyes that pulsed with an eerie light. It let out a deafening roar, shaking the very air around them. "Move!" Olivia shouted, grabbing Claire's arm and yanking her backward. The team scrambled to retreat, their hearts pounding in their chests. The creature didn't pursue them immediately. Instead, it stood motionless, watching as they fled toward the safety of the Odyssey. Once inside the ship, they slammed the hatch shut and collapsed against the walls, breathing heavily. No one spoke for several minutes. The adrenaline coursing through their veins made it hard to think clearly. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. What was that thing?" "I don't know," Olivia admitted. "But whatever it is, it doesn't seem happy we're here." Claire stared out the window, her mind racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that the creature had been trying to communicate with her somehow. The moment she'd touched the crystal, she'd felt something, a connection, a presence. It was as if the planet itself was alive, and they had just disturbed its slumber. As the storm raged outside, the team huddled together, unsure of what to do next. They had come to Eric's 9 seeking answers, but now they realized they might have stumbled upon something far greater and far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The next morning, the storm had calmed slightly, though the acidic rain still drizzled steadily. The crew of the Odyssey sat in silence inside the ship, each lost in their own thoughts. None of them had slept well after the encounter with the towering creature. Ethan kept replaying the moment it emerged from the ground, its glowing eyes locking onto them like a predator sizing up its prey. Claire couldn't stop thinking about the crystals and the strange sensation she'd felt when she touched one. Ryan stared at the readouts on his console, checking for any signs of movement outside while Olivia paced back and forth, trying to decide their next move. "We can't just sit here," Olivia finally said, breaking the silence. "We came here for a reason. If we don't gather data, this whole mission will have been a waste." Ethan frowned. "You saw what happened out there. That thing, it's not just some random animal. It's dangerous." "I agree," Claire chimed in. "But I also think there's more to it. The crystals, they're not natural, and that creature, it didn't attack us right away. It paused like it was studying us." Olivia crossed her arms. "Studying us or deciding whether to kill us?" "Maybe both," Claire admitted. "But running away won't answer our questions. We need to understand what we're dealing with." Ryan glanced at the others. "If we go back out there, we'll need a plan. Last time we were caught off guard, this time we should be ready." After a brief discussion, they decided to return to the site of the crystals, but cautiously. They armed themselves with tools that could double as weapons if needed, and equipped their suits with enhanced sensors. As they stepped back onto the surface of Eric's 9, the air felt heavier, charged with an unsettling energy. The ground was slick with rain, and the jagged rocks seemed to glint ominously in the dim light. When they reached the cluster of crystals, Claire immediately knelt down to examine them. She ran her gloved fingers over their rough surfaces, searching for any clues. Ethan stood nearby, scanning the area with his handheld device. "These things are emitting some kind of signal," he muttered. "It's faint, But it's definitely there. Claire nodded. It's like they're alive, or connected to something alive. Before anyone could respond, the ground trembled again. This time it wasn't just a single creature that appeared. Dozens of shapes rose from the earth, surrounding the team. Each one was similar to the first, a biomechanical hybrid of flesh and metal, with glowing eyes and spindly limbs. The creatures moved slowly, deliberately, forming a loose circle around the humans. "What do we do?" Ethan whispered, gripping a heavy wrench tightly. "Stay calm," Olivia ordered, though her voice betrayed a hint of fear. "They haven't attacked yet. Maybe they're waiting for something." Claire took a step forward, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. Her heart raced, but she forced herself to focus. "I don't think they're here to hurt us," she said. "Look at how they're moving. It's almost ceremonial." The creatures stopped advancing, their glowing eyes fixed on Claire. One of them tilted its head as if studying her. Then, without warning, it let out a low hum, a sound that resonated deep within the crew's chests. The noise wasn't aggressive. It was almost melodic, like a form of communication. "They're trying to talk to us," Claire realized aloud, "but not with words." "How can you tell?" Ryan asked skeptically. "I don't know how to explain it," Claire admitted. "I just feel it, like they're sending emotions or images instead of sounds." The largest creature, the one that had appeared the day before, stepped closer. Its movements were slow and deliberate, almost hypnotic. When it was only a few feet away, it extended one of its clawed limbs toward Claire. She froze, unsure of what to do. But when the creature gently tapped the crystal nearest to her, a burst of light erupted from the formation, bathing the area in a soft glow. For a moment, everything went still. The rain stopped falling, and the wind died down, completely. Claire felt a surge of warmth spread through her body, accompanied by a flood of sensations. She saw flashes of images, strange landscapes filled with towering structures, skies painted in colors she couldn't name, and beings that looked like a blend of machine and organism. The visions were overwhelming, but they carried a message. This planet was once home to a highly advanced civilization, one that had created the crystals as part of a vast network designed to sustain life. "They're guardians," Claire gasped, snapping out of the trance. "The crystals, they're part of a system meant to heal the planet. These creatures protect it." Olivia frowned. "Heal the planet? From what?" "From outsiders," Claire replied. "Like us. Our presence is disrupting the balance. The crystals are reacting to our technology, and the creatures see us as a threat." Ethan shook his head. "So what are we supposed to do? Just leave? Abandon the mission?" "We might not have a choice," Olivia said grimly. "If staying here risks destroying whatever's left of this ecosystem, then we can't justify continuing." The creatures began to retreat, melting back into the ground as suddenly as they had appeared. The storm resumed, the acidic rain pelting the crew's helmets once again. Claire turned to the others, her expression serious. "We need to report this back to Earth. Tell them what we've found. Humanity has to know that some places aren't meant for us." Ryan sighed. "And what happens if they don't listen? What if they send another team, or worse, try to exploit this place anyway?" "That's a risk we'll have to take," Olivia said firmly. "But for now, our job is clear. We document everything and get out of here." As they made their way back to the Odyssey, the weight of their discovery settled heavily on their shoulders. They had come to Eric's 9 hoping to find salvation for humanity, but instead, they had uncovered something far greater, a reminder that not everything in the universe existed for human benefit. The planet's guardians had shown them mercy, but it was clear that such kindness wouldn't last forever. Inside the ship, Ethan powered up the systems while Claire uploaded her findings to the central database. Ryan monitored the sensors, ensuring no creatures were following them. Olivia stood by the window, staring out at the desolate landscape. Despite the danger, there was a strange beauty to Eric's 9, a sense of mystery that lingered long after they had left the surface. "We'll need to leave soon," Ethan announced. "The next big storm is approaching. If we wait too long, we might not make it off the ground." Olivia nodded. "Then let's get ready. We've done what we came here to do." Now it's up to Earth to decide what comes next. As the Odyssey prepared for liftoff, none of the crew could shake the feeling that they were being watched. The creatures were gone, but their presence lingered in the air, a silent reminder of the delicate balance between exploration and exploitation. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain. Humanity would never forget the lessons learned on Eric's 9. The Odyssey lifted off the surface of Eric's 9 with a low rumble, its engines straining against the planet's heavy atmosphere. The acidic rain lashed at the ship as it climbed higher, the jagged cliffs and barren plains shrinking into the distance. Inside, the crew sat in silence, their minds still reeling from what they had experienced. The creatures, the crystals, the visions, none of it felt like something they could easily leave behind. They had come to Eric's 9 seeking answers, but instead they had uncovered questions that seemed impossible to answer. Ethan was the first to break the quiet. "Do you think they'll believe us?" he asked, his voice low. He glanced at Claire, who was staring out the window, her face pale beneath the dim light of the cabin. Claire hesitated before responding. "I don't know," she admitted. "What we saw, it's hard to explain. Even I'm not sure I fully understand it." Olivia leaned back in her seat, her expression unreadable. "It doesn't matter if they believe us or not. We have the data, the crystals, the readings, the footage. It's all there. If they can't see the truth in that, then we've done everything we can." Ryan, seated at the controls, didn't look away from the navigation panel. "And if they decide to ignore it? What happens when another team comes here, or worse, when someone tries to mine this place?" No one answered. The thought hung heavy in the air, unspoken, but undeniable. Humanity's history was filled with examples of exploitation disguised as progress. Eric's 9 was no ordinary world. It was alive, in ways they barely understood. If Earth decided to prioritize resources over preservation, the consequences could be catastrophic. As the ship broke free of the planet's gravity and entered the cold void of space, Claire pulled up the recordings she had made of the crystals. She replayed the moment the largest creature had tapped the formation, triggering the burst of light and the flood of images. Her hands trembled slightly as she reviewed the data, searching for any detail she might have missed. The visions had been vivid, almost overwhelming, but now they felt distant, like fragments of a dream slipping through her fingers. "What exactly did you see?" Ethan asked, leaning over her shoulder. His tone wasn't skeptical, just curious. Claire sighed. "It was like a story, a warning maybe. The planet used to be home to a civilization, one that was incredibly advanced. They built the crystals as part of a system to heal the world, to keep it alive. But something went wrong. Maybe they pushed too far, took too much. The ecosystem collapsed, and the guardians, the creatures, were created to protect what was left. And now they see us as a threat," Ethan finished, "because we're doing the same thing." "Exactly," Claire said. "But it's not just about us. It's about what we represent. If humanity keeps going down this path, we'll destroy everything we touch, even places like this." Olivia stood and walked over to the viewport, gazing out at the receding form of Eric's 9. The planet looked smaller now, its swirling storms reduced to faint smudges of color against the blackness of space. "We need to make them understand," she said firmly. "Not just the ICI, but everyone. This isn't just about one mission or one planet. It's about how we approach exploration. We can't keep treating the universe like it exists for us to conquer." Ryan finally turned away from the controls, his brow furrowed. "You really think they'll listen? People back on Earth are desperate. They're running out of options. If they think Eric's 9 has something that can help, they won't care about anything else." "They'll have to care," Olivia replied. "If they don't, then we're no better than the civilization that ruined this planet in the first place." The journey back to Earth would take weeks, and the crew used the time to prepare their report. Claire spent hours organizing her findings, compiling detailed descriptions of the crystals, the creatures, and the visions she had experienced. Ethan worked on analyzing the energy readings they had collected, searching for patterns that might explain how the crystals functioned. Ryan focused on mapping the planet's terrain, creating a comprehensive chart of the areas they had explored. And Olivia wrote the final summary, weaving together their discoveries into a cohesive narrative. But as the days passed, tensions began to rise. Ethan grew frustrated with the limitations of their equipment, convinced they were missing critical details. Ryan became increasingly withdrawn, haunted by the memory of the creature's glowing eyes. Claire struggled to put her emotions into words, feeling as though any attempt to describe the experience fell short. Only Olivia remained steadfast, her determination unwavering despite the doubts gnawing at the edges of her resolve. One evening, as the ship drifted silently through the vast emptiness of space, Claire approached Olivia in the common area. "Do you ever wonder if we made the right choice?" she asked softly. Olivia looked up from the tablet she had been reading. "What do you mean?" "I mean, leaving, abandoning the mission. What if we could have learned more? What if staying longer could have helped us understand the crystals better?" Olivia set the tablet aside and met Claire's gaze. "I won't lie, it's crossed my mind. But we couldn't risk it. Those creatures, they weren't hostile, but they weren't friendly either. They let us go because we respected their warning. If we'd stayed, pushed harder, who knows what might have happened?" Claire nodded slowly. "I guess you're right, it's just, I feel like we barely scratched the surface." "We did what we could," Olivia said. "And now it's up to Earth to decide what happens next. All we can do is hope they make the right choice." As the Odyssey continued its journey, the crew found themselves drawn to the viewport more and more often. Eric's 9 had faded into the distance long ago, but its presence lingered in their thoughts. The planet had shown them both its beauty and its danger, its fragility and its resilience. It had forced them to confront uncomfortable truths about humanity's place in the universe and about themselves. When they finally reached Earth's orbit, the reality of their situation hit them like a punch to the gut. The blue-green orb below was breathtakingly beautiful, but it also bore the scars of centuries of neglect. Pollution choked the skies, and vast stretches of land were barren wastelands. The message they carried from Eric's 9 was clear. Unless humanity changed its ways, Earth would suffer the same fate as the mysterious civilization that had once thrived on that distant, deadly world. As the Odyssey docked with the orbital station, the crew prepared to deliver their report. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Convincing others to abandon the pursuit of resources in favor of preservation would require more than evidence. It would demand a fundamental shift in perspective. But as they stepped off the ship and into the bright lights of the station, they held on to one truth. They had seen something extraordinary, something worth protecting, and they wouldn't stop fighting until the rest of humanity saw it too. The crew of the Odyssey stepped off their ship and into the sterile metallic corridors of the orbital station. The contrast between the harsh, alien world they had just left and the controlled environment of the station was jarring. Bright, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting sharp shadows on the walls. The air smelled faintly of recycled oxygen and cleaning agents, a stark reminder of how far they were from the raw, untamed wilderness of Eric's 9. They were greeted by a team of officials from the Interstellar Colonization Initiative, ICI. The group included scientists, engineers, and bureaucrats, all eager to hear about the mission's findings. Olivia led the way, her face calm but her mind racing. She knew this moment would define not only their future but possibly the future of humanity's approach to space exploration. Behind her, Ethan carried a data tablet filled with their recordings and analyses, while Claire clutched a small container holding fragments of the crystals they had collected. Ryan brought up the rear, his eyes scanning the room as if expecting some unseen threat to emerge. The debriefing took place in a large conference room. The walls were lined with screens displaying maps of Eric's 9, graphs of atmospheric readings, and images of the crystalline structures. At the center of the table sat the ICI director, a tall man named Gregory Lane. His expression was unreadable as he motioned for the crew to begin their report. Olivia started by outlining the basics of the mission: the planet's extreme conditions, the discovery of the crystals, and the encounter with the biomechanical creatures. Her voice was steady, but there was an undercurrent of urgency that even she couldn't fully suppress. When she described the vision Claire had experienced through the crystals, murmurs rippled through the room. Some faces showed skepticism, others curiosity, and a few outright disbelief. Claire took over next, explaining the significance of the crystals and their apparent connection to the planet's ecosystem. She spoke carefully, choosing her words to convey both the wonder and the warning of what they had seen. "These formations aren't just minerals," she said. "They're part of a network, a system designed to sustain life. The creatures we encountered are guardians created to protect that system. Their presence is a message. Erix-9 isn't a resource for us to exploit. It's alive and it has its own rules." Gregory leaned forward, his fingers steepled. "And you believe these visions are proof of this?" "It's more than belief," Claire replied. "The evidence is in the data. The energy patterns, emitted by the crystals, the behavior of the creatures, they all point to an intelligent design. We disrupted that balance simply by being there. If we push further, we risk causing irreversible damage." Ethan chimed in, pulling up charts on the main screen. "The crystals generate massive amounts of energy," he explained. "But it's not random. There's a rhythm to it, almost like a heartbeat. It's possible they're regulating the planet's environment in ways we don't fully understand yet." A scientist near the back raised her hand. "Even if what you're saying is true, how do we know the system can't adapt? Humanity has faced challenges before. We've always found a way to coexist." "That's different," Olivia interjected. "This isn't about adapting. It's about respecting boundaries. The creatures didn't attack us because we left when they wanted us to. But if another team goes back, if mining operations start, we won't get a second chance." The room fell silent. The weight of their words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. For a moment it seemed as though the officials might actually consider their plea. But then Gregory stood, his expression hardening. "We appreciate your dedication," he said, his tone measured but firm. "But the reality is, Earth needs resources. Billions of lives depend on finding solutions. If Erix-9 holds the key to survival, we can't turn away." Claire felt a surge of frustration. "You're missing the point. This isn't just about survival, it's about responsibility. Exploiting Erix-9 will only repeat the mistakes that got us into this mess in the first place." Gregory shook his head. "I understand your concerns, Dr. Dawson, but decisions like this aren't made lightly or quickly. Your findings will be reviewed, analyzed, and debated. Until then, we have obligations to fulfill." As the meeting ended, the crew left the conference room feeling defeated. They had hoped their report would spark immediate action, but instead, they were met with bureaucracy and resistance. Back in their quarters, they gathered around a small table, their mood somber. "What now?" Ethan asked, breaking the silence. "Do we just sit here and wait for them to send someone else out there?" "We can't give up," Olivia said firmly. "There's still time to make people listen. We need to share our story, not just with the ICI but with everyone. If the public understands what's at stake, maybe they'll demand change." Ryan frowned. "And if they don't? What happens when another ship lands on Erix-9? Those creatures won't show mercy twice." "I know," Olivia admitted, "but doing nothing isn't an option. We owe it to that planet and to ourselves to try." Over the next few days, the crew worked tirelessly to spread their message. They gave interviews to journalists, wrote articles for scientific journals, and even recorded a video detailing their experiences. Claire became the face of their campaign, her passion and conviction shining through every word she spoke. Ethan provided technical explanations, breaking down complex concepts into terms anyone could understand. Ryan shared his perspective as a pilot, emphasizing the dangers of returning to such an unpredictable environment. And Olivia acted as the anchor, keeping the group focused and determined despite growing opposition. Their efforts began to gain traction. Public interest in Erix-9 surged, with debates erupting across news channels and social media platforms. Some supported the crew's call for caution, praising their bravery and insight. Others dismissed their warnings as exaggerated or impractical, arguing that humanity couldn't afford to abandon potential solutions. Amid the chaos, Claire received an unexpected message. It came from a scientist named Dr. Elena Myers, who specialized in exoplanetary ecosystems. "Your findings align with research I've been conducting," the message read. "If you're willing, I'd like to collaborate. Together, we might be able to present a stronger case." Claire forwarded the message to the rest of the crew. "This could be our chance," she said. "If we can combine our data with hers, maybe we can convince the ICI to reconsider." Olivia nodded. "Let's do it. Every little bit helps." As they worked with Dr. Myers, new insights began to emerge. Her research suggested that planets like Erix 9 were rare, but crucial to maintaining galactic biodiversity. Disturbing such worlds could have ripple effects far beyond their immediate environments. With this additional evidence, the crew prepared a revised presentation for the ICI. When they returned to the orbital station weeks later, the atmosphere was tense. The officials listened intently as the crew presented their updated findings, bolstered by Dr. Myers' contributions. This time, the response was different. While not everyone agreed, several key figures expressed concern about the potential consequences of exploiting Erix 9. Gregory, however, remained unmoved. "Your arguments are compelling," he acknowledged, "but the decision ultimately rests with higher authorities. Until then, the mission remains classified." Though frustrated, the crew refused to lose hope. They continued sharing their story, reaching wider audiences and inspiring others to join their cause. Slowly but surely, attitudes began to shift. Protests erupted in major cities demanding accountability and sustainable practices. Scientists rallied behind the crew's findings, urging caution in future missions. Months passed, and the debate raged on. The crew of the Odyssey knew their fight wasn't over, but they also knew they had sparked something important, a conversation about humanity's role in the universe. Whether Earth would heed their warning remained uncertain, but one truth was clear. They had done everything in their power to protect Erix 9, and perhaps, somewhere deep within the planet's toxic storms, the Guardians were watching, waiting to see if humanity had truly learned its lesson. Months had passed since the crew of the Odyssey returned to Earth, but their lives were far from quiet. The debate over Erix 9 raged on, dividing scientists, politicians, and the public into two camps. On one side were those who believed humanity's survival depended on exploiting every available resource, no matter the cost. On the other were those who argued that the lessons of Erix 9 were too important to ignore, that some places in the universe were meant to be left untouched. The crew found themselves at the center of this storm. Ethan spent most of his days fielding questions from reporters and engineers, trying to explain the technical details of the crystals and their energy patterns. Claire became a reluctant celebrity, her face appearing on news broadcasts and magazine covers as she pleaded for caution and respect for alien ecosystems. Ryan avoided the spotlight as much as possible, focusing instead on maintaining the Odyssey and preparing for whatever came next. And Olivia worked tirelessly behind the scenes, coordinating with activists, scientists, and policymakers to keep the conversation alive. Despite their efforts, progress was slow. The Interstellar Colonization Initiative, ICI, remained divided, with Gregory Lane and his allies pushing for further exploration of Erix 9. "We can't let fear dictate our actions," Lane argued during a televised hearing. "If we turn away from opportunities like this, we're condemning billions to suffering or worse." But the crew's supporters were growing louder. Protesters gathered outside ICI headquarters, holding signs that read, "Respect the Guardians," and "Save Erix 9." Petitions circulated online, gathering millions of signatures. Even some corporate leaders began to question whether short-term gains were worth the potential long-term risks. One evening, the crew gathered in a small apartment they had rented near the orbital station. The room was cluttered with papers, tablets, and half-empty coffee cups, evidence of their relentless campaign. They sat around a table, exhausted but determined. "What's next?" Ethan asked, breaking the silence. His voice was weary, but his eyes still burned with determination. "We keep going," Olivia replied firmly. "Every day we delay another mission, we buy more time to make our case." Claire nodded. Dr. Myers has been reaching out to other researchers. If we can get enough experts to back us, maybe we can force the ICI to reconsider. Ryan leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. Even if they listen, what happens after that? Do we just leave Erix-9 alone forever? What about the rest of the galaxy? There will always be another planet, another resource. That's why this matters, Olivia said. Erix-9 isn't just one planet, it's a test. If we can learn to respect its boundaries, maybe we can change how we approach exploration altogether. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. When Olivia opened it, she found a courier holding a sealed envelope. Inside was a message from the ICI, a formal request for the crew to attend an emergency summit. The subject line read simply, "Decision pending." The summit took place in a grand auditorium filled with representatives from governments, corporations, and scientific organizations. Cameras lined the walls, broadcasting the event to audiences across the globe. The atmosphere was tense, with whispers filling the air as attendees speculated about the outcome. Gregory Lane opened the proceedings, summarizing the arguments for and against further exploration of Erix-9. He emphasized the urgency of Earth's resource crisis, painting the planet as a potential lifeline for humanity. Then it was Olivia's turn to speak. She stepped onto the stage, her heart pounding but her voice steady. Erix-9 is not just a source of minerals or energy, she began. It's a living, breathing world, one that has already suffered because of human interference. The creatures we encountered are not monsters. They are guardians, protectors of a delicate balance that took millennia to create. If we destroy that balance, we risk losing something far greater than any resource we could extract. Behind her, screens displayed images of the crystals, the creatures, and the barren landscapes of Erix-9. Claire followed with a presentation of their findings, highlighting the data and research that supported their claims. Dr. Myers joined via hologram, adding her expertise to the discussion. Together, they painted a picture of a planet that was not just hostile but profoundly complex and worthy of preservation. When they finished, the room erupted into debate. Voices rose and fell, arguments clashed, and tempers flared. Finally, after hours of deliberation, Gregory Lane called for a vote. The decision would determine the fate of Erix-9 and perhaps set a precedent for humanity's future in space. The results were close, but in the end, the majority voted against further missions to Erix-9. The planet would remain untouched for now. Cheers erupted from the crowd and the crew exchanged relieved smiles. They had won a victory, but they knew it was only temporary. The battle for Erix-9 was over, but the larger war for humanity's soul was just beginning. In the weeks that followed, the crew returned to their normal lives, though nothing felt truly normal anymore. Ethan went back to tinkering with machinery, finding solace in the simplicity of gears and circuits. Claire resumed her work as a biologist, inspired by the mysteries of Erix-9 to study other extreme environments. Ryan flew cargo missions between Earth and the orbital stations, his thoughts often drifting to the strange creatures he had seen. And Olivia continued advocating for responsible exploration, determined to ensure that the lessons of Erix-9 were not forgotten. Years later, rumors began to circulate about a signal detected from deep space. It matched the frequency of the crystal's energy patterns, faint but unmistakable. Some believed it was a message from Erix-9 itself, a reminder, or perhaps a warning. Others dismissed it as coincidence, a trick of cosmic radiation. Claire often found herself staring at the stars, wondering if the Guardians were watching. She liked to think they were silently observing humanity's choices and waiting to see if people had learned to tread more lightly in the universe. The story of Erix-9 became legend, told in classrooms and documentaries, debated in scientific journals and political forums. It served as both a cautionary tale and a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the vastness of space, there were lines humanity should not cross. And so the crew of the Odyssey moved forward, carrying the memory of Erix-9 with them. They had faced the unknown and emerged changed, their lives forever intertwined with a distant, deadly world. Whether humanity would follow their example remained uncertain. But one thing was clear: The universe was vast, mysterious, and full of wonders, and it deserved to be treated with care.